The skies above Mount Olympus trembled. Thunder rolled through the heavens like the heartbeat of a god in pain. Zeus, the king of all gods, sat upon his golden throne, his hands clutching his head in agony. The air itself seemed to split apart as lightning flashed across the endless sky. The mighty ruler of Olympus, who once swallowed the goddess of wisdom, Métis, now felt a torment growing within him, a storm not of the world, but of his own mind. He roared in pain, his voice shaking mountains and oceans alike. The gods gathered in fear, unable to help, as the pain grew unbearable. Some whispered that Zeus was being punished for his pride. Others believed that something far greater was about to be born. Then, with one final cry that echoed through the cosmos, a crack of thunder split the heavens open. From the skull of Zeus burst forth a blinding light, brighter than any star, sharper than any blade. And from that light emerged Athena, fully grown, clad in shining armor. Her eyes glowed with the calm fire of wisdom, her spear gleamed with divine brilliance. There she stood, majestic, fierce, and utterly composed. While other gods were born of chaos and passion, Athena was born of thought. Not from a mother's womb, but from the very mind of Zeus himself. Her first breath silenced Olympus. Even Zeus, moments ago writhing in agony, now stared in awe at the daughter who emerged from his own mind, not as an infant, but as the embodiment of intellect, justice, and strategy. The heavens themselves seemed to bow to her presence. For in that moment, wisdom was born into the world, not as a whisper but as a warrior. Athena was unlike any god before her. She carried within her the perfect balance of mind and might, the calm before the storm, the reason within the rage. And with her arrival, a new kind of power entered Olympus, one that would forever change the way gods and mortals alike understood strength. Because true power, Athena would teach, is not found in the swing of a sword, but in the mind that decides when, and why, to swing it. Long before Athena burst forth in radiant armor, a prophecy had already been whispered among the ancient gods, a prophecy that would haunt Zeus himself. It was said that the Titaness Métis, goddess of wisdom and cunning thought, would bear a child destined to surpass her father in power and intellect. A child who could one day overthrow even the mighty Zeus. The king of the gods, who once toppled his own father Cronus to claim the throne, knew the weight of such words. He understood what prophecy meant, because he had lived it. Cronus too had tried to defy fate, swallowing his children to prevent his fall. Yet destiny found its way, as Zeus rose from within to end his father's reign. Now, that same fear crept into Zeus's immortal heart. He loved Métis, her brilliance, her counsel, her quiet strength. She was unlike any goddess he had known, a mind sharp as lightning and calm as the sea. But fear and love cannot live in the same heart for long. And so, one day, as Métis spoke softly of the future, Zeus struck. In a moment of divine panic, he swallowed her whole, believing that if she were hidden inside him, the prophecy would die with her. But wisdom cannot be consumed. It cannot be caged. Inside the great god, Métis continued to live, her presence whispering thoughts, ideas, and knowledge into his mind. What Zeus thought was silence soon became a storm, a restless pulse of creation, a thought of something growing beyond his control. Days turned into nights, and the pain within him grew unbearable. The thunder in his skull was the voice of destiny pounding to be free. Even the other gods could not bear to look upon their king, the mighty Zeus, trembling, screaming in agony. Then came Hephaestus, the god of the forge, his hammer blazing with fire. Summoned by Zeus's desperate command, he raised it high and, with a single, mighty strike, split open the head of Zeus. From that divine wound, a blinding light poured out, and from it emerged Athena, radiant, fierce, and unshaken. Her armor gleamed like the dawn, her spear hummed with the sound of order itself. She looked around, not as a child, but as one who already understood. Born not from love nor pain alone, but from the union of both, from wisdom and fear, from reason and power. And in that moment, the prophecy was fulfilled, not in the way Zeus feared, but in a way he could never have imagined. Athena did not come to overthrow him. She came to perfect him. She was the mind he never had, the wisdom to temper his might, the intellect to guide his rule. Métis lived on through her, her voice now speaking through Athena's calm gaze. Thus, Athena became known as the daughter without a mother, yet she carried within her the soul of the wisest being who ever lived. She was proof that even the gods cannot silence wisdom, because wisdom, once conceived, always finds a way to be born, even from the mind of a god. From the moment Athena opened her eyes upon the world, the heavens themselves seemed to pause, as if Olympus was trying to understand what had just been born. She was radiant yet calm, gentle yet unyielding. Her presence carried the serenity of thought, but also the discipline of war. She was not merely the goddess of wisdom, she was wisdom armed. Athena represented something the ancient world had never seen before, the harmony of two forces that often stood in opposition, intellect and strength. While other gods embodied raw emotions, love, rage, chaos, or desire, Athena was balance itself. Her wisdom was not that of poets or dreamers. It was the wisdom of kings, of generals, of those who must decide not just how to act, but when to act. She understood that true intelligence is not in knowing everything, but in knowing what to do with what you know. And when she entered the battlefield, she was no less divine. But unlike Ares, the god of bloodlust and destruction, Athena never fought for the thrill of combat. Ares was chaos made flesh, the clash of steel, the scream of dying men, the smell of blood and fire. Where Ares walked, war consumed everything. But Athena? Athena was the order within that chaos. The silence before the strike, the mind behind the blade. Where Ares represented war's madness, Athena represented war's purpose. He was emotion, she was logic. He destroyed, she defended. To the Greeks, this difference was everything. Ares symbolized the brutality of battle. Athena, the discipline that transforms conflict into strategy. Under her guidance, even war could become a form of wisdom, a test of patience, intellect, and justice. Every part of Athena's being told a story. The owl, her sacred companion, was more than just a bird. It was the watchful eye of truth. While the world slept, the owl saw everything. To the Greeks, it symbolized the mind's ability to pierce through darkness and illusion. Her helmet and spear were not tools of violence, but instruments of protection, meant to defend justice, not to impose tyranny. And then there was the aegis, the divine shield she carried, forged from the skin of a giant, adorned with the terrifying head of Medusa. When Athena raised it, even the bravest warriors trembled, not from fear of death, but from the realization of what true power looks like, calm, controlled, and unstoppable. Finally, the olive tree, her most enduring gift to humankind, a symbol of peace, prosperity, and endurance. It reminded mortals that wisdom and war are not enemies, but two halves of survival. The olive tree grows slowly, yet lives long, just as peace, once earned, must be protected with vigilance. Athena was called Pallas Athena, the virgin goddess, not in the mortal sense, but in the divine. Her purity was not of the body, but of the mind. She was untouched by lust, unshaken by passion, uncorrupted by vanity. While other deities were ruled by their desires, Athena ruled herself. Her independence was her strength. She needed no partner to define her, no consort to share her throne. That purity gave her clarity, the kind of clarity only those free from chaos can possess. She saw the world as it was, not as she wished it to be. And that made her dangerous, not through cruelty, but through truth. Athena was, in every way, the perfect paradox. A goddess of war who cherished peace, a symbol of strength born from wisdom, a warrior who conquered not with blood, but with reason. She taught that war, though dreadful, could be fought with honor, and that victory means nothing without understanding why you fight. In her, the Greeks found their ideal, the divine reflection of their greatest pursuit, to live with courage, but to think before acting. To master both the sword and the mind, because Athena was not merely a goddess to be worshipped, she was a lesson, a reminder that every battle, whether on the field or within ourselves, can only be won through wisdom. There was once a time when the land of Attica, a proud stretch of sunlit hills and rocky coasts, had no name, no patron, no god to call its protector. It was a land rich in promise, where mortals built their first cities, fished its bright blue waters, and gazed at the stars above. The gods of Olympus looked upon it with envy and desire, and among them, two stood above the rest: Poseidon, lord of the sea, and Athena, goddess of wisdom and war. Both wanted to claim the land as their own. Both wished to guide its people and shape its destiny. And so began one of the most important contests in myth, a battle not of swords, but of gifts. Zeus, seated upon his throne of lightning, declared that the one who could offer the mortals the greatest gift would become the city's divine protector. The other gods gathered to witness, for even among immortals, there was curiosity. What could wisdom offer that power could not? Poseidon was the first to step forward. With a mighty strike of his trident, he split the earth open. From the crack burst forth a towering wave, and at its heart, a magnificent horse leapt forth, a creature of strength and beauty, muscles rippling like the tides themselves. The people gasped in awe. The horse would carry them into battle, plow their fields, and expand their reach across distant lands. Poseidon's voice boomed like thunder. "With my gift, your people shall rule the earth and sea. None shall defy your power." The crowd cheered. It was a gift of conquest, of motion, of raw might. But then came Athena. She stepped forward quietly. No roaring waves, no thunderous display. Only calm wind and sunlight followed her presence. She knelt upon the barren ground, placed her spear into the soil, and from that touch sprang forth something small, a slender sapling. Its leaves shimmered silver beneath the light. The crowd murmured in confusion. It was not grand, it was not loud, it was simply alive. Athena spoke softly, yet her words carried to every ear.
"This is the olive tree. It will feed you when you hunger, heal you when you are wounded, and bring light to your nights. It will not conquer, it will endure."
She looked to the mortals, her voice calm but firm.
"Where Poseidon's gift teaches you power, mine teaches you peace. The sea can take life as easily as it gives it. But the olive, it grows, it nourishes, and it lasts."
The people stood silent for a moment, torn between might and wisdom. Then, one by one, they knelt before Athena. They had chosen not the sea, nor the sword, but the seed. Zeus smiled. Poseidon's anger thundered through the seas, but he could not deny the will of the people. The city was named Athens, in honor of the goddess whose gift would sustain it for eternity. And true to her word, the olive tree became sacred, its branches woven into crowns for victors, its oil burned in the lamps of temples, its fruit feeding rich and poor alike. Athena's wisdom had prevailed, not through spectacle but through understanding. She knew that true power does not come from domination, it comes from creation. The horse would carry armies, but the olive tree would carry civilizations. It would become a symbol of peace, knowledge, and life itself. The story of Athena and Poseidon was more than a divine contest. It was a reflection of humanity's eternal choice, between power and wisdom, between conquest and civilization. Poseidon's gift was the storm, fleeting, loud, destructive. Athena's was the earth, patient, silent, eternal. In choosing Athena, humanity chose to build rather than destroy, to think before acting, to cultivate rather than conquer. And in that decision, the Greeks defined the very soul of their civilization. From that day on, Athena watched over her city, her image carved in marble, her name spoken in prayer, her olive tree rooted at the heart of the Acropolis. And whenever the wind rustled through its silver leaves, it was said that Athena's voice could still be heard, whispering the lesson she gave the world.
"Power may rule for a day, but wisdom endures for an age."
For mortals and gods alike, Athena was more than just a goddess. She was the mind behind the legend. Whenever heroes faced impossible odds, when kings stood before ruin, when cunning was worth more than strength, Athena was there. Not always seen, but always felt. The whisper of strategy in the chaos of war. The spark of courage in the face of fear. The light of reason in the darkest hour. Her influence runs deep through the stories of Greece, in battles, quests, and tragedies alike. And through each of them, she revealed a different face of her wisdom. Long before Athens rose to greatness, there was a mortal named Perseus, a young hero sent on an impossible task. To bring back the head of the Gorgon Medusa, whose gaze could turn any living being to stone. No mortal could face her alone. Even the bravest would falter before her monstrous power. But Athena saw something in Perseus, not brute strength but potential. And so, she came to him in a vision, offering guidance and gifts that would turn the impossible into destiny. She gave him a polished bronze shield, its surface shining like a mirror.
"Do not look upon her directly,"
she said.
"Use this, See her reflection, not her face.
It was a lesson in subtlety, in intellect over impulse. She also guided him to the Grey Eye, the ancient sisters who shared one eye among them, teaching Perseus to use cleverness rather than violence to gain the knowledge he needed. When Perseus finally faced Medusa, it was Athena's shield that saved him. Through reflection, he struck swiftly and cleanly, not out of rage, but out of understanding. And when the Gorgon's head fell, Athena took it, embedding it into her own aegis shield. A symbol that wisdom, once gained, could turn even terror into protection. Thus, through Perseus, Athena showed the world that intellect could conquer monsters where swords could not. Centuries later, the world was torn apart by one of the greatest wars ever sung, the Trojan War. A conflict born not of strategy, but of pride. And at its heart, once again, stood Athena. It all began with a golden apple, the apple of discord, cast by Eris, goddess of chaos, inscribed with the words, "To the fairest." When it rolled across the table of the gods, 3 divine hands reached for it: Aphrodite, Hera, and Athena. Unable to decide, they turned to a mortal prince, Paris of Troy, to choose which goddess was most beautiful. Hera offered him power. Athena offered him wisdom and victory in battle. Aphrodite offered him love, the most beautiful woman in the world, Helen of Sparta. Paris chose love. He gave the apple to Aphrodite. And with that single choice, he ignited a war that would consume nations. Athena, scorned by his decision, turned her favor from Troy to its enemies, the Greeks. But even in anger, she remained measured. Her vengeance was not wild like Ares's, it was strategic. Throughout the war, Athena guided heroes such as Achilles, Diomedes, and Odysseus. She gave them counsel in dreams, whispered plans into their hearts, and inspired them to fight not recklessly, but wisely. In one tale, she granted Diomedes the power to see gods upon the battlefield, allowing him to strike down Ares himself, proving that wisdom could outmatch even divine fury. Yet, Athena's wisdom could be merciless. When the Greeks finally conquered Troy, she watched as mortals forgot gratitude and drowned in arrogance. Her silence spoke louder than her words, for even the goddess of wisdom could not save those who refused to learn. When the fires of Troy finally died, the Greek hero Odysseus began his long journey home, a voyage that would test not his strength, but his mind. Athena loved Odysseus above all mortals. He was clever, patient, and cunning, a mortal who mirrored her own divine intellect. In him, she saw not a warrior but a thinker. As he sailed across storm-tossed seas, lost among monsters and temptations, it was Athena who guided him. When Poseidon's wrath sent waves crashing against his ship, it was Athena's voice that whispered courage into his heart. When he was trapped by the witch Circe, it was Athena's wisdom that showed him how to resist. When he faced the siren's deadly song, it was her guidance that helped him bind himself to the mast, proving that wisdom often means restraint, not resistance. Even upon returning home, Athena did not abandon him. She disguised him as a beggar, tested his patience, and taught him that the mind must conquer pride before reclaiming power. Odysseus's victory was not in battle, it was in endurance, in strategy, in patience. And through him, Athena showed that true heroism is not measured by how loudly one fights, but by how cleverly one survives. Athena's presence can be felt throughout countless myths. In Heracles, she stood beside the hero during his 12 labors, guiding his strength with reason. In Bellerophon, she gave the hero the golden bridle to tame Pegasus, turning wild power into discipline. And in the myth of Arachne, she punished hubris, reminding mortals that wisdom without humility becomes arrogance. Every story she touched carried the same lesson, that intelligence without morality is dangerous, and strength without guidance is chaos. Athena's thread through time. Through Perseus, she taught cleverness. Through the Trojan War, she taught strategy. Through Odysseus, she taught endurance. Each story, like a thread, weaves into a single tapestry, the mind of Athena. She was not a goddess of one realm, but of every moment where thought triumphs over instinct. Her wisdom shaped heroes, her presence shaped nations, and her lessons shaped humanity's idea of civilization itself. Because Athena was not the goddess who fought beside you. She was the one who taught you why the battle mattered in the first place. In the ancient world, chaos was never far away. Where men gathered, power clashed with power. Kings waged wars for pride, mortals spilled blood for land, and even the gods themselves were not immune to wrath. But amidst this storm of violence and vengeance stood Athena, radiant and composed, the embodiment of balance, reason, and justice. She was not a goddess of blind punishment, nor one of merciless law. She was the voice of civilization itself, the wisdom that turns instinct into order and power into peace. When mortals fought, Athena did not always choose sides. She looked beyond the swords and shields, beyond anger and ambition, searching instead for truth. To her, justice was not about who was strongest, but who was right. One of Athena's most defining acts came during the trial of Orestes, a man cursed by fate itself. Orestes had slain his mother, Clytemnestra, to avenge his father's death, a crime that tore his soul apart and enraged the ancient goddesses of vengeance, the Furies. The Furies demanded blood for blood. They hunted Orestes relentlessly, their shrieks echoing through the night, symbols of the old world, where justice was born only from revenge. But Athena saw something different. She saw the dawn of a new order, one where men would no longer answer injustice with endless killing. She intervened, bringing Orestes before a jury of Athenian citizens, marking the birth of trial by law. As the Furies and Orestes pleaded their cases, Athena listened in silence, her eyes calm, her mind sharp as her spear. When the votes were finally cast, they were evenly split, half for mercy, half for death. It was Athena who gave the final word. She declared,
"Where reason is equal to rage, let mercy decide."
Her vote tipped the balance toward acquittal, and from that moment, the rule of law was born. The Furies, once spirits of vengeance, were transformed into the Eumenides, the kindly ones, guardians of justice under Athena's guidance. Through her wisdom, revenge became law, and chaos became civilization. But Athena's justice went far beyond courts and crimes. She was the architect of human progress, the divine mind behind arts, crafts, and rational thought. Where Ares taught men to fight, Athena taught them to build. Where Poseidon offered the sea, she offered the olive tree, symbol of peace, nourishment, and endurance. She guided blacksmiths in forging tools, sculptors in shaping marble, and philosophers in seeking truth. Under her influence, Athens became not just a city, but an ideal. A symbol of harmony between intellect and strength, of democracy and the pursuit of knowledge. To the Greeks, Athena wasn't just a goddess, she was civilization itself. Her presence meant progress, law, and learning. Her temples stood at the heart of cities, her statues overlooking marketplaces and assemblies, as if reminding mortals. Wisdom must always guide power. Even among the gods, Athena's sense of justice shone bright. She often acted as the mediator in divine conflicts, calming the tempers of her father Zeus, advising heroes with reason instead of pride, and standing firm when deceit or arrogance corrupted Olympus. Unlike other deities, she demanded no sacrifices of blood or fear. Her offerings were olive oil, knowledge, and art, gifts of creation, not destruction. Her justice was not born from punishment but from understanding, and that made her different. That made her eternal. Athena's justice was not about dominance. It was about balance between mind and might, mercy and power, man and God. She showed the world that true civilization is not measured by walls or weapons, but by wisdom. And so, when mortals spoke of order, of fairness, of reason, they were, knowingly or not, speaking the language of Athena. Every god in Greek mythology carried symbols, signs that revealed their power, purpose, and personality. But few symbols are as rich and layered as those of Athena, the goddess who embodied both the mind of a philosopher and the heart of a warrior. Her emblems were not just decorations of power. They were manifestations of her very essence, woven into the soul of Greek culture and human understanding. The first and most enduring of Athena's symbols is the owl. To the Greeks, the owl was no ordinary bird. Its wide, unblinking eyes could pierce the night, seeing through the darkness when others were blind. It symbolized clarity of thought, perception, and the ability to find truth even when the world was cloaked in ignorance. Athena's owl, often perched upon her shoulder or flying beside her, represented knowledge that never sleeps. In Athens, the bird became a sacred guardian, a sign of protection and intelligence. So respected was this creature that the Athenian silver coin, the drachma, bore its image, a declaration that wisdom itself was the wealth of the city. Even today, the phrase, "the owl of Athena," is used to describe insight, learning, and the pursuit of truth that comes only through observation and patience. Next stands the olive tree, Athena's eternal gift to humanity and to her beloved city. When she competed with Poseidon for the right to name the city of Athens, she planted the first olive tree, a living promise of peace, endurance, and nourishment. Where Poseidon's saltwater spring spoke of strength and conquest, Athena's olive symbolized wisdom over force. It gave oil for light, fruit for food, and wood for warmth, a gift that sustained civilization itself. From that moment, the olive became the sacred emblem of Athens, planted in temples and courtyards as a sign that knowledge and peace would always triumph over chaos. Even in war, Greek soldiers carried olive branches to offer truce or mercy, proof that even in the heart of battle, Athena's spirit could still whisper peace. But Athena was not only a goddess of peace. When wisdom failed and reason could not sway hearts, she was also the protector, armed, fearless, and just. Upon her chest or arm she bore the aegis, a shield or breastplate forged with the head of Medusa, the Gorgon whose gaze could turn men to stone. It was said that no mortal or god could stand before its power. Yet the aegis was more than a weapon, it was a symbol of divine authority. It represented the idea that true power does not come from destruction, but from the courage to defend what is right. To carry the aegis was to bear responsibility, the burden of justice, protection, and moral strength. It was Athena's reminder that wisdom without the will to act is nothing but empty thought. Athena's spear and helmet are among her most iconic symbols, seen in countless statues and depictions across the ancient world. Unlike Ares, who wielded his weapons out of bloodlust, Athena's arms represented strategy, discipline, and defense. Her helmet was often shown slightly lifted, never covering her face, symbolizing that even in battle, she fought with clarity and awareness, not rage. Her spear was precise, not wild, a tool of purpose, not chaos. Every strike symbolized thought before action, strategy before violence. Together, the helmet and spear stood for the perfect harmony between intellect and strength, the very essence of Athena's being. Often coiling near her feet or carved upon her shield, the snake is another of Athena's lesser-known but profound symbols. To the Greeks, the serpent represented renewal and protection, as it shed its skin to be born anew. Athena's serpent companion, sometimes identified as Erythonius, a legendary king of Athens, symbolized her role as guardian of the city and its rebirth through knowledge. The serpent's presence reminded mortals that wisdom, like life itself, must constantly evolve, to learn, to adapt, to renew. Each of Athena's symbols carries its own story, but together they form something greater, a philosophy of existence. The owl teaches us to see beyond illusion. The olive tree reminds us that peace can be more powerful than conquest. The aegis warns that wisdom must be protected. The helmet and spear show that intelligence must be backed by strength. And the snake whispers that knowledge must never stop growing. In these emblems, Athena's essence lives on, a balance of logic and compassion, reason and courage, intellect and instinct. Even today, millennia after her temples have turned to ruins, her symbols endure, carved in universities, engraved on coins, depicted in art and literature. They remind us that true civilization begins not with might, but with the mind. For Athena's wisdom was never meant for gods alone. It was a gift to humanity, a torch passed through time, lighting the path from chaos to order, from ignorance to understanding. And so, when the owl takes flight at dusk, when an olive branch is raised in peace, or when reason triumphs over fury, Athena still walks among us. Thousands of years have passed since the last offerings were made upon her altar. The marble temples that once echoed her name now stand in ruins, kissed by time and silence. And yet, Athena never truly left us. Though her statues have crumbled and her worshippers are gone, her spirit continues to shape the world in ways the ancients could have never imagined. Because Athena was never just a goddess. She was, and still is, an idea. And ideas, unlike stone, do not decay. They evolve, they endure. In the modern age, every library, every university, every spark of curiosity is a whisper of Athena's wisdom. She was the goddess who turned thought into power, and that belief survives in every scientist, philosopher, and thinker who dares to question the unknown. When a child asks, why, when a scholar searches for truth beyond superstition, when reason triumphs over ignorance, that is Athena's legacy. Her owl still soars, though now its wings are made of paper, ink, and light. It flies across classrooms, laboratories, and the endless expanse of human imagination. The Greeks once said that Athena was born from the mind of Zeus. Perhaps that was their way of saying that wisdom itself is divine. That knowledge, when guided by justice, is the highest form of power. And that belief remains the foundation of our modern civilization. Athena's presence is not limited to thought alone. It lives in law, order, and democracy. The ancient Athenians built their city in her name, believing she watched over them not as a ruler, but as a guide. They founded democracy under her symbol, the owl, representing reason and fairness in decision-making. Today, that same spirit flows through every courtroom and parliament, where the idea of justice, not vengeance, rules the day. When a judge seeks truth instead of punishment, when a society values debate over war, when law rises above chaos, Athena's wisdom lives again. Her trial of Orestes was not just a myth. It was a blueprint for civilization, the first spark of a world governed by reason, not fear. Athena's image continues to appear in art, literature, and philosophy, a symbol of intellect guided by strength. From the Renaissance to modern times, she has inspired countless works, her face carved into stone, painted onto ceilings, and even engraved into emblems of universities and nations. She became the muse of artists, the guardian of thinkers, and the patron of progress. Her likeness stands atop the U.S. Capitol building, represented as Minerva, symbolizing wisdom guiding governance. Her name graces cities, societies, and even spacecraft, proof that humanity still looks to her when we reach for greatness. In poetry, she represents the triumph of the mind. In sculpture, the harmony between beauty and reason. In philosophy, she is the eternal reminder that knowledge without morality is hollow. Even in this digital age, of screens, algorithms, and artificial intelligence, Athena's essence remains vital. For what is technology, if not the pursuit of knowledge? And what is wisdom, if not knowing how to use that power justly? Athena teaches us that intellect must be tempered with ethics, that progress without compassion leads only to ruin. She reminds us that the future depends not just on how much we can create, but on why we create it. When humanity builds with reason, empathy, and foresight, we honor her. When we forget those virtues, we repeat the mistakes of gods and mortals who once tried to silence wisdom, only to be destroyed by their own ignorance. Athena's temples may have fallen, but her light still burns, not in marble but in minds. It shines in the quiet confidence of a leader who chooses peace over pride. In the resolve of a scientist searching for truth. In the courage of a teacher shaping young minds. In the wisdom of those who seek understanding before judgment. Her legacy is not worship but practice. Not sacrifice but study. Not fear but thought. And perhaps that is why she remains eternal. Because Athena was never the goddess of blind faith. She was the goddess of reason, courage, and creation. And as long as humanity continues to learn, to question, and to seek the truth, Athena will never die. So, what do you think, traveler of stories? Was Athena truly the perfect balance, wisdom and war, reason and strength, or was she a reminder that even gods struggle to master their own power? Tell me what you think in the comments below. Do you see your legacy still alive in our modern world? In knowledge, in justice, in the way we live today? And if you enjoyed diving deep into the mind of the goddess of wisdom, don't forget to leave a like, share this story with a fellow seeker of truth, and subscribe to Kata Dunia, where myths, mysteries, and legends come alive, one story at a time.